Hello, it's Jane here, the Cornish Knitter. This is my second vlog and welcome to anybody that hasn't watched me before, and welcome back to anybody who watched my first one. Oh my goodness, I am absolutely amazed at how many of you have liked, commented, subscribed. I think we've got over 2,500 subscribers to date. Absolutely amazing. I genuinely thought it would be me talking to the dog and a few friends, and it has been, well, I just cannot put into words what it's meant to me to hear your lovely comments and to realise there are a number of us out there that really enjoy all the podcasters that are currently there, but felt that there was space in that sort of big landscape for a more mature knitter who isn't sort of defined by knitting baby clothes or blankets or but actually wants to knit modern contemporary clothing, but needs to think about how to adapt it to suit their own body type and what they look like, and think about, you know, how our colour changes over the years and how we need to think about colour. So it's just so refreshing to hear that there's so many of you out there that felt like I did. As I said, I really love listening to younger bloggers. I love that it's such an inclusive community, the knitting and crochet community, that, you know, anybody can be part of it. I really enjoy listening to male bloggers, for example. I really find it refreshing to hear their perspective and see what patterns men are really interested in. I have a son in his early 30s, so, you know, it's nice to hear what they would be wearing. So I just think there's space for all of us. But yeah, I'm just so glad that you feel the same and you found me so relatable. And thank you for such amazing comments. You truly did blow me away. I know sort of lots of podcasters come on and sort of say that, but I genuinely feel it, because it was so much better than I'd expected it to be. You posted so many comments. I think there's hundreds of comments on there, and you know, it was lovely to see people from all over the world comment and create this sort of, as I said, tribe or movement of us that feel the same way, and it was just really sort of heartening to see you make so many pattern suggestions. I mean, my Ravelry favourites now for cardigans has grown by about 40 new cardigan patterns. For somebody who's as indecisive as me, that's probably not a good thing, but thank you for sharing them, because I've found patterns that I'd never seen before, and it's, you know, it's probably changed what I'm going to knit anyway, so, but that's not unusual. But no, thank you for sharing that. All the blanket patterns that people suggested, some really great ideas for that. Just people sharing their tips and just talking about their knitting experience and their love of knitting. It's just amazing. And yeah, I feel I'm part of a gang now, so I hope you do too. I don't want to make these videos overly long. One of the things that I do consider when I'm looking at vlogs is I look at the timing of them, and if they're sort of over an hour long, I think to myself, well, I don't really want to commit to that amount of time. Sometimes I will, but quite often I just want a 30-40 minute vlog to sit down, watch while I'm doing something else, and it's just a little bit of time out while I drink a cup of tea or coffee, possibly eat a bit of cake too. And many of you commented that you'd like to hear more about the shop. For those of you that have joined for the first time, I co-own a knitting and luxury yarn shop in Falmouth in Cornwall called Stitches and Cream. I'll put a link to it in our information beside this. But yeah, so many of you sort of said you were interested in the shop content, so I will include bits of it and talk about my experience as a yarn sort of fanatic for most of my life, and what it's felt like to transition into owning a yarn shop, my reflections on turning my hobby maybe into a business. I mean, I came into the shop, really was created as I sort of reached the last part of my working life, thinking of, I've worked all my life, thinking about my future and what I want to get out of the future, and part of what gives me pleasure and satisfaction in the shop is sharing my love of yarn and my experience and helping other people to become as passionate as I am about British yarns, for example, or using natural fibres and, you know, the amazing wealth of patterns that are out there, and helping people to think about what colours they use, what yarn would suit the project in terms of, you know, would it stretch, is it the right fibre, is it worsted spun, is it a woolen spun, you know, they need cables, but all of those things, it's just amazing to be able to turn that passion into something that will potentially give me an income into later life as well. So yeah, I feel very fortunate on both counts, but I'm happy to talk at times about that sort of content in the videos. Many of you mentioned Cornwall. I'm biased. I love Cornwall. I think it's, for me, Falmouth in particular is the best place in the world. I grew up here, I went to school here, I've always lived here, even though I've worked away in London for many years. My home, I always kept my home here in Cornwall, so I would be home every weekend. Yeah, I just love it. That it's living by the sea, hearing the sea, being able to see it in all its moods, whether it's dark and stormy, whether it's sunny and beautiful and sparkling. There is no bad part of looking at the sea for me, so it's something that I love. I know a number of you have got your own experiences of Cornwall, and some of you have shaped those experiences from watching TV programs, you know, the Rick Steins, the Doc Martens, the Poldarks. We're not all pirates and we don't all cook, but yeah, you know, Cornwall is a beautiful county to live. It has its challenges. I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but I'm lucky to live here, and I'm happy to share more Cornwall content. And a little bit later on in this vlog, I'm going to put in some bits around Falmouth in Cornwall, which is my home, and share with you sort of just what it's been like over the last few days, because it's been really sunny but hugely windy. In fact, one of the videos, I think you'll just see me moving my mouth. You won't, probably a good thing, you won't actually hear me because the wind is roaring so loud and my hair is horizontal. So it's but I've just put up some content there for you to start to enjoy Cornwall as much as I do. So thank you for making those suggestions. Just my editing skills that I'm learning, and I will learn each time, so I will try and add in the pattern title and the designer when I mention a pattern along the bottom. I am looking at a microphone to improve things, but yeah, this, you know, me and technology, I am learning quickly, and I will try and improve on the quality of the editing and the sound and the lighting as we go. A few of you also commented on my accent as well. It doesn't sound very Cornish. I do, if I get tired or if I get angry, no, I don't often get angry. I often get tired but not angry. My accent sometimes will show through odd words like pasty instead of pasty, which some people say. But on the whole, as I say, I worked in London for many years and around the UK. My accent's probably evolved a little bit, but I do slip back into sort of more of a Cornish twang. The Cornish sort of accent you would hear on any TV series as a Cornish person, we would cringe, because there are very few people that actually speak like that down here. Even sort of people that are indigenous to the county probably don't have that strong an accent. So on to the knitting content, which is what you've come on to here. So if we start off with finished objects and what I'm wearing. So as you can see, I've got my Phil Kalana Nordstrand sweater is finished. It's a polo neck. I'll stand up as well, just so that you can see a different view of it. Just some sort of construction notes, things that I will sort of just highlight that I do when I'm sort of knitting something like this. The colour work, I always go up at least a half a needle size, if not a whole needle size when I'm doing colour work. I just find it gives me a much more even look. It sort of matches my sort of basic stockinette stitches. It means that it's not feeling restricted. I just think it gives me a much more professional look. I also like to do, the pattern suggests a just cast off in 1x1 rib. I prefer to do a sewn bind off, which I think gives you a much more professional finish on the sweater. I've done it on all the ribbed 1x1 ribbed edges. It takes you a bit longer, admittedly, but I just think it gives you a much nicer finish on your sweater. The sleeves I've knitted a tiny bit shorter than the pattern, and I mentioned the collar before because I didn't want to put a neck. It was sort of sitting right up underneath my chin. You get makeup on it, and being prone to sort of variances in temperature, sometimes you don't want something that's too tight and you get too hot. So I did cut about 3 centimeters off the length of the collar. I knitted the large size. It's knitted in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool and held with their Tilia mohair and silk blend. Beautifully soft, lovely and warm. And we've got some cold weather forecasts for the next few weeks, so I probably will get lots of wear out of it. Really loved it. The only thing I would probably change if I knitted it again is that I feel I've got a bit too much fabric here underneath the arms, so the yoke length is possibly a bit long on somebody of my stature. So I would look at ways that I could potentially shorten this bit of the yoke before I get into knitting the colour work, because it's got German short rows at the back to make it nice, lay nicely, but I just feel that it's slightly too long in the yoke for me. But I'll wear it loads. So really happy with that. Highly recommend the pattern and the yarn, and yeah. So I mentioned in the previous vlog that I was going to be knitting some socks in our Amble fibre company, Amble sock yarn, which is my favourite sock yarn. I was going to knit a pattern by Fibre Tales. For the life of me, I can't remember. I think they were called the Grow. Anyway, I'll make a note of it in my notes. When I looked at the construction, whilst I loved the pattern and I thought it would look lovely in the yarn, I opted to knit something different, and the reason was because the purpose of knitting this was actually partly for the shop, because we're going to be launching a sock club in the next few weeks, and the idea behind the sock club is we teach loads of people. I teach loads of people to knit socks, who can knit but never knitted socks before, and talk through construction, and I find it really rewarding. I love teaching people, whether they're beginners, beginner knitters or beginner crocheters, or people that want to sort of start to learn more advanced techniques. Love teaching people. I love sharing my knowledge and learning with them as well along the way, and it's lovely to hear their stories and why they're knitting. So it goes back to why I got involved in the shop in the first place. But this pair of socks is called the Petty Harbour socks, and let me look at my notes. They are by Raina Curtis, and the reason I picked these is I was thinking from a beginner's point of view. They're top down with a heel and gusset construction. Hate the word gusset. It takes me back to memories. Anybody that's a similar age to me grew up in the UK. We used to have PE lessons, which you did as a girl in a white vest and a pair of navy blue knickers. The word gusset always makes me think of those navy blue knickers. Horrible thought. But it is my favourite construction for a sock, so I'm going to have to get over my reluctance to say that word. But this pattern was lovely and simple. I think it looks fabulous in the in this yarn. This yarn is so warm, snuggly and soft. Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and this is the purpose of this. Our sock club is going to have loads of video tutorials. It's going to be social. People are going to get the yarn and the pattern every couple of months, and it's to create a real sort of vibe around sock knitting. So if anybody is interested, just pop onto our website and you'll see more information about it. So that's why I chose to knit that. I will knit the other socks at some stage, but the reason I didn't was when I actually looked at the construction, the pattern around the just underneath the cuff, I just felt was too complicated for somebody that was a fairly new sock knitter. So that's one pair of socks. And then, then I knitted another pair of socks. Now this is the hockey socks, which is dedicated to Hockey Locatelli. I think it's knitted by one of her friends. She's called Vera Valimatia. And she designed these socks. These are a toe-up design, again with a heel flap and gusset, but you do use German short rows to shape the heel. The little bit of design on it, you can see there's a contrast stripe here and a tiny little bit of lace, and I just like that little bit of detail. I sometimes think if you've got too much lace on your socks, fine in the summer, but if you want to wear them in the winter, they don't actually give you the warmth that you wanted. I had to cast these on and knit them, which comes back a little bit to the conundrum you sometimes have, or the debate you have with yourself about sort of knitting, having to knit for the shop or having to knit for yourself. We have this yarn is from the Camel's Yarn, Hannah, who's a Cornish dyer. She's just moved out of Cornwall actually, but she is Cornish. We've worked with Hannah ever since we've opened. Love her yarns, love her colour palette. So she dyed this one up as a bespoke yarn for us. It's called Seashells by the Seashore, something like that. She sells seashells. I think that's what it's called. She sells seashells. It's a kit we're putting together for Mother's Day, basically, with the contrast yarn, and I needed to knit the socks up. For those of you that live outside the UK, our Mother's Day this year is March the 19th. So I needed to knit these up because this is just to show people what you could do with the little kit. But lovely pattern. Really enjoyed knitting it. Quick knit, and now I've just got to decide what socks. I might actually knit a pair of socks for myself next time. So what socks to knit next? So those are my finished objects. I'm going to go on to talk to you about what I've been working on. So I've not done masses of. Last time I showed you sort of lots of ideas about what I was thinking about knitting. I did say then that likelihood is that I wouldn't knit it all, and yeah, I was still to make a decision on the cardi. You sent me so many, as I did say, and there were some that I'd not seen before, and I've probably changed my mind multiple times. But now I've finished this one, I am ready to cast on with my cardigan. I'm going to knit it in the herd, and I cannot find, oh there it is, I dropped it on the floor. I am going to knit it in the herd. I decided to knit it in the natural shade, which is a blue face Leicester yarn, heritage yarn. I loved some of the other patterns that people suggested. I probably thought that for me, some of them would look better in a nice summer shade rather than this neutral shade. So I was trying to think about, would the yarn match the pattern, which is something that I do take into consideration. So I think, I was going to say it's between two, but probably it's between about 3 or 4. I did like, somebody suggested the flake cardigan pattern by Moni Ebner, and when I looked at that, I liked that construction because it was a raglan shaping, which I, as I said last time, I actually like a raglan rather than always a yoke, and particularly with a yoke cardigan I would worry about it puckering a little bit here. I love the Kate Davis cardigan options that I talked about, Horology, and I can't remember the name of the other one, but I did find another one which was the Orange Achura, which is another Kate Davis design, which I really liked. And a number of you mentioned the Whitmore cardigan, which again is a popular choice. Many of you mentioned Felix, and I've knitted Felix both as a sweater and a cardigan in the past, and it's probably the go-to one that I recommend for customers when they want to start knitting either a sweater or a cardigan, because I think it's such a it's by, I think it's by Amy Christopherson, but again, I will check. But it's such a simple pattern for a person that's trying to knit in the round for the first time. I think it's a great pattern, well written, and it is one that I recommend to so many of our customers. But thank you for your recommendations. Yeah, that was a great one. But the Whitmore cardigan came up as well by Amy Loudon, and there was the Shandy, which was a Thea Coleman cardigan, which I really liked too. I think that was a set-in sleeve, again sort of a different construction. So I will be casting it on, but the next time you see me I will have something on my needles. I'll have committed to a cardigan design and I'll be sharing it with you next time. But thank you for all your suggestions. Similarly with the blanket, you came up with lots of suggestions. I'm still contemplating crocheting one actually, just because it's knitting all the time. Not that I particularly suffer from it, but I know lots of our customers do. They get sort of pains in their hands, or they suffer a little bit with arthritis. I'm lucky I don't, but I am conscious that it's probably a good idea to use my muscles in my hands in a slightly different way, just to break it up. So the Cozy Comfort by Shannon at Blue Fern Yarns in crochet is a real potential, but Bits and Bods is probably the other one. And I did come across the Log Cabin Blankie by Rachel Brockman, which I really liked too, but I think it's either going to be the Bits and Bobs if I knit it, or if not, I'm going to do the Cozy Comfort blanket in crochet. But I will share that with you when I get there. So the only other thing that I've really been working on at the retreat, I thought I was going to get loads of knitting done. I thought, oh well, that's great. I'll sit with the guys that are attending, and I'll be able to do lots of knitting and sort of really crack into a project. Didn't work out that way. Chatted a lot, ate a lot, but also, you know, making sure that everybody had a lovely time. So making cups of teas, coffees, you know, all of those things. It meant that I didn't actually sit down and focus on something. But what I have started was the Juno shawl, which is by Carrie Pedersen. I mentioned this last time. So the construction, you sort of go up, you increase, and then you keep the stitches the same level, and then you decrease. So it's sort of it's not even a crescent shawl, but it's sort of a thinner shawl shape. It's not a triangular shawl. It looks a bit wonky, but as we know, blocking is the magic that happens. So I've knitted this in 3 colours from Wool Decanted. I've knitted it in a dark grey, a natural and a lime green. I think the lime green makes it pop. And this is such a lovely yarn. I have actually gone down half a needle, or a quarter of a needle size. I think the pattern said to knit it in 3.5mm needles. I've gone down to 3.25 because it's quite a lightweight fingering yarn. So I didn't want the fibre to be too thin. So I've actually gone down, and I'm glad I have. It might make the shawl a little bit smaller overall, but that's fine as far as I'm concerned. So that is what I've been knitting on. I wanted to also share something I didn't show you last time, but I put up a video on. Last year we did a Knit 48, something called Knit 48, which every week, every Sunday I released just a 1 hour project, which was a sampler of a different stitch to encourage people to learn and experiment and try something that was achievable and manageable every week, and with the aim of putting it together at the end so that people had a lovely blanket. Mine, I just used all my scraps of double knit yarn, so it's got no colour palette at all. But other people had purchased yarn specifically and created some beautiful tonal blankets, which were lovely. Mine's not tonal, but I did manage to use up lots of my scraps, which I'm really delighted about. I can't show you all because it's quite big. The samples were all slightly different sizes, but I found over the 48 samples that they managed to come out all the same. As is going to be auctioned off when I've done the border. We will probably give the money to charity. Mine's all done in obviously natural fibre, so it's lovely and warm. But we did different things, like we did, sometimes we did lace stitch, sometimes we did cable, sometimes we did colour work. blackberry stitch. Forgot how nice it is to do a bobble. Don't tend to wear them just because, again, with my shape and physique, sometimes I think bobbles can make me look a little bit bigger. I suppose it's also harks back to the old traditional Aran sweaters that we used to wear as kids, and it just, yeah, it's not something that I've worn on my, but I am tempted to use it again. I thoroughly enjoyed knitting them anyway. I've got to show you my sheep. Here's my sheep here. Can you tell that that's a sheep? So this was in Tarsia, so it's just I should never take up design, so don't worry guys, I'm never going to be releasing patterns myself, but my sheep caused a lot of hilarity because it's sort of a cross between a sheep and a fluffy dog or something, some sort of creature. But anyway, so I've got to do the border on it, and I've been toying with what I'm going to do, but I actually think I'm going to crochet, just use double crochet and maybe a picot edging or something, or even I might do some crochet bobbles. Rather than pick up and knit it around. I think I might actually crochet the border, but I do need to do the border and get that finished so that we can auction it off and raise some money for a really worthwhile charity. So that's that. And what else have I got here? I just wanted to show you something that I'd purchased, in case you think I always sort of go for neutral colours, and I do usually, just because I mentioned my skin tone. I found as I've aged, my skin tone's changed, and I can't wear colours that I might have worn when I was younger or get away with. They make you look a bit older, a bit harsher, and your hair, as your hair colour changes, I think, and it sort of fades. Getting old can be depressing, can't it? But hey, you know, we do our best to make the most of how we look. So I just needed to adapt really the colours that I use. But I do buy brighter colours. But so I just wanted to show you this purchase that I'd got from Bryony at Spectrum Fibres. We used to stock Bryony's yarns. Love her yarns. They are beautiful and soft. Do go and check them out. Oh, I held that up the wrong way. And I have got a couple of shawls knitted in it, and I love it. Bryony made a decision during COVID. I think she really struggled to get supplies of her base yarns, and she had a baby. So she sells from her own website, and I still buy from her. So we don't stock it anymore, but I do love it, and I did buy some. How I would probably use this, although colour wise I think this one would work because it's got sort of subtler blues and pinks. How I tend to use colour like this now as I get older is I'd probably blend this with a pale grey or a silver grey or a natural sort of shade. So if I put, I've got a cream there, for example, so that would look, I'm not great with a whitey cream really against my face again, but if I use the Herd one, for example, as an example, to put the two together, or that one, it sort of knocks it back a little bit and brings it down so that I can wear it sort of near my face. So I do use colour, but I probably don't use it as a big block of colour. I would intersperse it. And this is another one. We don't stock King Fibre. This is one that I bought recently. I just love the vibrancy of it, but I would use this probably with a darker grey to just add a pop of colour on a pattern that had some stripes or some sort of part in it that would actually just really sort of need that. So that's all my works in progress and a couple of acquisitions. By the time I speak to you again at the end of March, I will have cracked on with most of those projects, and also probably have plans for a whole new load. So the next episode I'll talk a little bit more about plans, knitting for the shop. There's always new yarns coming out, there's always new patterns, something always comes out that that makes me think, oh no, I need to get that knitted. At the retreat, a lot of the ladies had some lovely patterns, had massive pattern envy, and one of the ladies had a lovely shawl which, when she showed me the original pattern, I would have, because of the yarn choices that she picked, I would have never have looked at the pattern at all. I think it's called the Buccaneer shawl, but she did it in a beautiful colour palette, and I was just like, oh wow. And then she'd put this border on it which was additional. So yeah, that's going to be in my plans next time, and I will share that with you when we speak, probably next time, but that's certainly on my horizon. I really loved it, and I will have cast on my cardigan. But at the end of the podcast today, I will, as I said, just put some clips of Falmouth. Just the final thing I'm going to talk about is, I said each time I was going to do a little bit about my favourite knitting tools and accessories. So I'm about to share that with you now. So the eagle-eyed amongst you last time spotted that I had these little beauties sat behind me on the table. These are called yarn butlers. You can see I've got 3 different colours of yarn on this. I bought these at the Southwest Yarn Festival, Stitch Fest Yarn Festival back in, I think it was November last year. And the reason I bought them, I'm going to put that one down because it's a bit heavy, but the reason I bought them, as you can see, they've got ball bearings, they allow yarn to swivel. I use yarn bowls quite frequently, but these caught my eye. And the reason I was using these was that I am knitting again for the shop, because we've got some of these kits in the shop. I was at Yarndale and talking to Melinda at Zakami Yarns, and she had this beautiful scarf that was on her stand, made of her yarns, and if you look at the back, you've always got 2 colours running alongside each other, and I was getting into a bit of a tangle as I was knitting it. The yarn itself is a blend of Surrey alpaca, merino and cotton. It knits up slightly thicker than a traditional Surrey alpaca, and this is beautiful and soft. So we purchased some of the yarn for some kits which we got in the shop. The yarn pattern is called, I'm just going to check this because I did write it down, I think it's called the Monica shawl. Oh, where have I written that down? I don't know, I did write it down somewhere. I will put up on my notes who the design is. Ariana, and I can't remember the lady's surname, but anyway, we've got the kits in the shop. But the yarn butlers really help with keeping the yarn separate, because otherwise they were just getting in a right old tangle, and I was just getting a bit frustrated with knitting it. So when I saw these on the stall, I thought, actually, that could be the solution I need, and I need 3 of them. So I bought a double one and a single. Really like them. So if you spot them out and you like a little bit of colour work, a very good investment if you fancy them. So that brings me to the end of my second vlog. Thank you for sitting and listening to me again, if you've managed to wait the whole way through. As I said, I will start to bring in those other bits of content that we talked about right at the beginning in future vlogs. Keep posting, keep commenting, keep giving me ideas. If I can share, inspire, help, anything like that, please do get in contact. I do try and comment back on everybody and thank everybody. There are some I've missed. When I went back through last night, I thought, oh goodness, I've missed some people off, and I hope you don't feel that I've missed you on purpose or anything. It was just that I had so many that I was struggling to keep up with them, which was absolutely fabulous. But I apologise if I didn't respond to you. I do try and get back to people because I think it's really important to acknowledge people that have taken the time out to comment. So it's really great. So until next time, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of Cornish content. Bye. So this is tan windy, shawl on, essential for this sort of weather. But this is the view that I can see from my front window. Very lucky, I know. Down my walk from my home down to the shop as I come to work. So this is the park just below that, looking out towards Greenbank Hotel, where we're going to be later with the retreat ladies for afternoon tea. Not quite as windy here, but it's still really cool. Just got to get used to the wind. But just thought I'd show you what it's like. So I just wanted to show you that Falmouth is also a record. There's a cruise ship in the dock there, the docks. Falmouth is the third largest natural harbour in the world. So we do have some